Okay, so today we're looking at a really significant piece of legislation, the Take AI Down Act. It's just passed Congress, bipartisan support, and now it's heading to the president.
That's right. And it tackles a pretty tough issue, this non-consensual sharing of intimate images, both the real stuff and the AI-generated deepfakes.
Exactly. And just before we jump into the specifics, if you find this kind of breakdown useful, please do think about liking this and subscribing for more content.
Yeah, definitely. So this act, it's interesting because it actually combines elements from two different efforts, doesn't it?
It does. It brings together Senator Klobuchar's original Take AI Down Act and also Senator Cornyn's SHIELD Act.
Right. Both were aimed at, fighting the online exploitation using private, explicit images. So merging them makes a lot of sense, really. It creates a stronger front.
So the core idea, what's the main mechanism here?
Well, fundamentally, it makes it illegal, criminalizes publishing these intimate images or videos without consent. And crucially, that includes AI deepfakes now, too.
Okay, so it covers both real and fake explicit content if it depicts someone identifiable.
Precisely. And then there's the part about the websites, the platforms, social media, similar sites. They'll have to set up procedures.
Procedures for removal.
Yes, for removing the content. If a victim notifies them, they have 48 hours to take it down.
48 hours. That sounds ambitious, given the scale of content online.
It is ambitious. It's a key part of the act, putting the responsibility on the platforms to act quickly once they're told. How that works in practice, well, that's something we'll need to watch.
We've heard from the politicians involved, right? People like Klobuchar, Cruz.
We have. Senator Klobuchar really emphasized, the need for victims to have some legal power, especially with deepfakes getting so convincing and frankly scary. And Senator Cruz points to the fact that this got support from both sides of the aisle. He stressed how important that is for protecting people from, revenge porn and then these new AI threats.
And Representatives Salazar and Dean also weighed in?
They did, highlighting protection for particularly women and minors who are often targets, and also stressing accountability not just for the creators, but for the platforms hosting the content, too.
That bipartisan agreement really is something. You don't always see that level of unity.
No, you don't. It suggests that pretty much everyone recognizes how harmful this misuse of technology can be, sharing intimate images to hurt someone.
It cuts across party lines.
Completely, in both the House and the Senate, and it's not just politicians.
Right, I saw First Lady Melania Trump also supported it.
Yes, she did. It fits in with her BE Best initiative, which, as you know, touches on child welfare and online safety.
So she was actively involved.
Apparently so. Reports say she lobbied for it and is planning to be there when it's signed into law. It shows a pretty broad base of support, reaching even the White House in that sense.
Let's talk about the definition. What exactly counts as non-consensual intimate imagery, or NCII, under this law?
Okay, so the Act defines it pretty specifically. It includes, obviously, real photos and videos, but also these realistic computer-generated pornographic images and videos. The key is that they depict identifiable real people.
And the realist aspect is important for the AI part.
Very important. We'll get to the reasonable person test later, but yes.
Yeah.
And another crucial point, just because someone consented to, say, a photo being taken, that does not mean they consented to it being published online. The law makes that distinction very clear.
That seems like a critical clarification.
Yeah.
So creating it is one thing, sharing it widely is another.
Exactly. Consent has to be for publication. Now, the law isn't trying to stop legitimate reporting.
What do you mean?
Well, it includes protections for what it calls good faith disclosures. So, for example, if someone shares NCII with the police as part of an investigation, they're protected.
Okay, that makes sense. And who's going to enforce the website takedown part, the 48-hour rule?
That responsibility falls to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. They'll be the ones ensuring platforms comply with those removal requirements.
The FTC, okay. And you mentioned earlier the law tries to be narrowly focused. How does it avoid impacting, say, free speech?
That's a major concern, obviously. The idea is to only criminalize knowingly publishing NCII without consent. It's not meant to stifle lawful speech.
And for the AI content, the deepfakes.
Right. For AI-generated NCII, there's this reasonable person test. Basically, would a reasonable person look at this AI image and believe it depicts a real individual? If yes, then it can fall under the act.
So it has to look convincingly real, not just like a cartoon or obvious fake.
Precisely. That's the standard they've set to try and target the truly harmful, deceptive deepfakes without overreaching.
This didn't just appear out of nowhere, though. There's some history here.
Oh, definitely. It builds on earlier efforts. There was the Enough Act back in 2017, also bipartisan.
Right. Right.
And a lot of the recent momentum probably came from concerns raised. Remember that Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in early
Right.
2024?
The one about child safety online and social media?
Yeah, exactly. Issues like online child sexual exploitation, harmful content. This act is part of the response to those ongoing problems. It shows legislation often happens incrementally, building on past work and current events.
And the final vote in the House reflected that urgency.
Hugely. It passed 409 to 2. That's an overwhelming majority.
Wow.
And the name itself, Take It Down, it's actually an acronym.
Oh, really? What does it stand for?
It stands for Tools to Address Known Exploitation by Immobilizing Technological Deepfakes on Websites and Networks.
Catchy and very direct about its aim.
Very direct. It spells out the focus on using tools, targeting known exploitation, stopping deepfakes, and involving websites.
So what are the actual penalties if someone violates this, if they publish these intimate visual depictions without consent?
Well, they could face serious consequences. We're talking potential prison time, fines, or possibly both. It depends on the specifics, of course. But it gives the law teeth.
And the platforms, beyond the 48-hour rule, they have other obligations.
Yes, they need to provide a clear way, a mechanism for victims to actually make that request for removal. It has to be accessible.
So victims need a straightforward path to report this stuff.
That's the requirement. Again, how effective those mechanisms are in reality will be key. Resources, responsiveness, these things matter.
And we know this isn't just a theoretical problem. People have really been targeted by this, right?
Yay.
Especially the AI-generated porn.
Absolutely. There have been some very high-profile cases involving prominent women celebrities, but also, disturbingly, minors as well. It highlights just how widespread this can become and how vulnerable different groups are.
Targeting both famous people and kids. That suggests a pretty broad, nasty scope to this problem.
It really does. It's not limited to one type of victim or one type of perpetrator.
So, wrapping up the passage of this Take I Down Act, it feels like a pretty big step.
I think it is. It's a concrete action to try and tackle online exploitation, specifically giving victims more power against both real image abuse and this rising tide of deepfakes.
And that strong bipartisan support, the backing from different political figures. What does that signal?
It signals that there's a widely shared understanding now of just how serious this problem is. It suggests maybe potential for more cooperation on related issues, online safety, privacy down the line, perhaps.
But the real test is yet to come, isn't it? Implementation, enforcement?
Exactly. Passing the law is one thing. Making it work effectively is another. We'll need to watch closely how it's implemented, how the FTC enforces it, whether it truly protects victims and holds offenders accountable in this, constantly changing digital world. Regulating tech is always a moving target.
And it does bring up those bigger questions, doesn't it, about content moderation online.
It really does. Where do you draw the lines? How do platforms balance protecting users from harm like NCII with principles of free expression? This law is one answer, but it's part of a much larger, ongoing debate.
Yeah, navigating that tension between privacy rights and free speech online, it's incredibly complex. This legislation is definitely adding a new layer to that.
It is, and it's something worth thinking about for you listening. What are the broader ripple effects of laws like this? How do they shape our online environment and the balance of power between individuals, platforms, and governments?
A lot to consider indeed. Well, thank you for breaking all that down for us.
My pleasure. It's an important development.
It certainly is. And thank you all for joining us for this analysis. If you found it valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe for more discussions on key legislative and technological changes. We'll catch you on the next one.